In this video, we're going to take you through the plugin called Contact Form, which is used simply to implement a contact form on your website. I've already got the plugin installed, and once you've done that, you can scroll down and on the left you'll see BWS plugins and then Contact Form. So we'll go in there, and the screen that we're immediately taken to is the main screen for the first contact form that's enabled when you install the plugin. So we've got a few settings that we can go through here. You can see the first are about who the contact form emails are sent to, and it's just pulling in my account here on this website as it's the only account. But if you have a multiple account website and even on contact form to contact form, you want it to go to somebody else, you can do that really easily. Additionally, you can also set a custom email address you might choose for those emails to go to example@example.com. So I'll just save those settings now, and what we'll do is we'll scroll down, and there's a couple of more options in here. Well, there's actually a very big number of options to go through. The first one you can see is save emails to the database. That's really easy to do, but there is an additional plugin you need to install called Contact Form to DB. It's also by BWS Best Web Soft, so that's why it works really well with this plugin. Next, we have a range of additional options, and it's important that we note that for most people, using the additional options is completely unnecessary, and there's, in most cases, absolutely no need. But we're going to go through those anyway, just in case they apply to you. The first option we have is what to use when sending email. By default, it'll be set to WP Mail, which is built into WordPress, of course. The other alternative is to use Mail, which is a PHP function. Then you can choose the text in the From field. You can see here the default will be the site name that you've got. You can also click in here and change this to anything you like. You can also set it to the username, which would mean the name of the user who fills in the form will be used in terms of who it's coming from. You can then choose to change the email address in the From field. It's set to the user email, and I'd suggest leaving it as that. If you change it, it'll be set to one email address and everything will come from that, which isn't really very helpful when you want to get back in touch with that person who's emailed you in the first place. Then you can see the required symbol is next, and it's just set to be an asterisk, which is more or less the internet standard for indicating a required field. Next, we get down to the particulars of the form itself. So you can see you've got name, email address, phone number, subject, and so on. Naturally, the subject and message fields are required, though a name and email address are not. You can turn those on and off if you'd like them to be or not to be required, of course. And in this particular case, you can see that the address and phone number fields are not currently used, but you can very easily just tick those boxes and turn them on. There are some features in here, though, that if you'd like to change, you will need to buy the Pro version of the plugin, which is mostly, as you can see here, about the form being visible, the default value, and whether it's disabled for editing. Finally, you can choose to add an attachment block. So if getting attachments is kind of important to you, I'd suggest turning that on. And as you can see here, it just allows people to upload particular formats of files to send to you. You can also choose to add tips below the attachment, which means you'll get a little message saying what files can be uploaded. You can also turn on the send me a copy block, which means that the user will be sent the email they send to you, so they've got their own copy. You can also turn on capture, though of course to do that you will need to get the plugin called Capture by Best Web Soft as well. But it's very, very easy to obviously download and install that anyway. There's a couple of options here. You can see there's an optional checkbox and an agreement checkbox. One is for submitting the form and the other is for the user to choose an option, and that will be then highlighted in the email that you receive. Then you can choose to delete an attachment from the server after the email is sent. Depending on how many emails you actually receive with attachments, it may or may not be useful. Then you can choose what format you want the email to be in. HTML is pretty common these days, though in some instances it can be nicer to get plain text. It means people can't really jam too much into that email that perhaps shouldn't be there. Then you've got some options regarding the additional information about the email. So you can see right here it's turned on, and then there's also 4 options turned on: the referrer, user agent, date and time, and the IP address as well. These can be particularly useful to identify and safeguard against spam. Next, you can choose the language settings for the field names in the form, and there's a massive amount of them that you can very easily choose from and select. Say you wanted to add Slovak to your languages, you would do that, then hit add language, and if you go down here, where it says action after email is sent, you've got display text and you've got English and Slovak. So then you can choose which one you prefer to use there very easily just by clicking on them. You can also choose to change the names of the contact form fields and error messages. If you tick that box, then you get a little drop down you can use, and you can see those options there, and they're very easy to change. They're just text boxes. And the same applies for any other languages you have, but of course, for all of those languages, they may not actually be within the plugin already. You'll have to add them yourself. Finally, we get down to the action after the email is sent, and at the moment it just says, thanks for contacting us. Alternatively, you can choose to redirect to a certain page. Finally, we get down to the server variable. That's the one that's used to build the URL of the contact form itself. Use of server name is most likely going to work for 99% of people, but you may also need to use HTTP host. Of course, you shouldn't actually change this unless you actually know which one your server uses, or except perhaps in the instance that one is not working and you want to try the other. When you're done making changes, all you need to do is click Save Changes, and those settings will be applied to this particular contact form. That's where we're going to wind this video up before we move on to our next one. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments below.